Leaving a clear cut unmanaged and really just walking away from it, I feel is an irresponsible use of land. It's a really affordable way to get yourself a piece of land that you can build and farm with.
It was inspiring when I first came here because I just saw how we could be living so much more in tune with nature than we had been living.
At this point, I'm getting to a point where I feel like I am doing it to make it a positive example and to inspire others.
Hello, I'm Tom Murphy. Welcome to Land and Sea. Clear-cutting a forest is a common but controversial practice. It can leave behind a gnarly mess of twisted branches, stumps, and deep ruts from heavy equipment. It can take decades for a forest to grow back. But where most people see only a damaged landscape, a group of people in rural Nova Scotia saw potential. They found the ideal location for an affordable, off-the-grid homestead.
Here's to Lair's lunch.
It's midday on the farm at Snow Lake Keep, and everyone's come together for lunch. The community is far off the beaten path along a gravel road in Nova Scotia's Annapolis County. Today's menu is roasted chicken raised on the farm with vegetables harvested from their farm. The community takes its name from a small lake on the property. Snow Lake supplies the water, the lifeblood, to irrigate the gardens and greenhouses. It's hard to imagine this land was once a clear cut, but with a lot of physical work, innovation, and ingenuity, it's come a long way. 15 years ago, Dereck Eagles bought this 57-hectare property to create a homestead and rejuvenate the native forest. He invited others to share both in the joy of living off the land.
So this piece of forest was cut 17 years ago, clear cut 17 years ago. As a result, everything that's here is pretty much the same age.
There are 7 houses on the land. They're all constructed using timber and stone from the property. The houses get their energy for lights and computers from the sun. They collect rainwater for drinking, washing, and bathing. They use composting buckets for toilets. They cook and heat their homes in hot water with firewood carefully harvested from the forest. Dereck and the others produce most of their own food, which allows them to be almost entirely self-sufficient. They have several gardens and every vegetable that grows in Nova Scotia. There are also 4 greenhouses with everything from peppers to cantaloupe to eggplant and tomatoes. They also raise chickens and Muscovy ducks for meat and eggs. And they keep goats for milk, cheese, and meat.
Even though it's a lot of work, it's, I guess, very satisfying to be self-sufficient in our food supply. And it's something we've been working towards for a long time. And every year or so we add something new. So to our food intake that we would generally buy somewhere else. Certainly there's lots of things we still are going to be buying, like bananas and avocados and coffee.
Dereck was born and raised in rural Nova Scotia, and from a young age he learned a lot from the farmers around him who strive to be self-sufficient and to respect their land. So when Dereck chose to start a new life on this clear cut, those values helped to guide the way he now lives.
Paying attention to the land. Not trying to make the land do something it wouldn't do on its own. Not fighting it, not trying to turn it into something against its nature, but just working inside of that and allowing it to give you what it can give you in that way.
Adam Harris shares that same commitment to the land. He moved from Toronto to be part of Snow Lake Keep, and he knows how far this community is now from where it began.
It's always hard to experience a clear cut firsthand. I mean, it is for me anyway. I feel like, you know, the first thing I always do is like imagine what it used to be, and the contrast of that is kind of heartbreaking. And then of course you add to that like the carbon emissions that will result, the methane emissions from the rot that will happen here, and of course the habitat loss. It's not a pretty picture, And people for that reason might think it's crazy to even want to buy a piece of land that's in that condition. But it certainly feels better to me to have some agency over its recovery than to just have to drive by every day and see it sort of turn into a thicket.
Adam works for a living. He's a graphic designer and commercial illustrator. The computer he uses to make images for clients is solar powered.
So each house here has its own solar panel system. This house has a 520 watt system, which is enough to run the lights and charge a couple computers or phones and run the internet all day. So it's without running any major appliances, which this house doesn't have, that's enough even in the winter months to get through the day with those basic electrical needs.
The houses aren't big, but they have ample room for storage. They can hold up to a year's supply of food. There's also room to store the equipment used for canning and preserving. Keeping with the principles of permaculture, all the houses are carbon neutral and built to last for hundreds of years. Nova Scotia still burns coal, so to cut down on greenhouse emissions, the houses are off the electrical grid. A little further along the driveway, Adam is working on a new building. It will have a 5,000 watt solar energy system.
So we're going to be mounting 12 panels on this roof, and that'll power this building as well as a small guest cabin and the house next door, as well as a freezer room. So we'll have 2 chest freezers in the back of this building that we'll be able to use.
Coming up on Land and Sea, the hard work behind Snow Lake Keep. If you could parachute yourself into Snow Lake Keep Homestead on Nova Scotia's North Mountain near the Bay of Fundy, you'd never know you're on a piece of land that was once a clear-cut. There are fertile gardens and greenhouses, a barn for the goats, chicken coops for hens, and chickens and ducks. And the houses where the 7 community members live are so sleek, modern, and smart, they could be on the cover of a magazine. They're also affordable and ecologically sustainable. To regulate the indoor temperature, all of the houses are bermed into the earth on the north side, with large windows on the south to benefit from the warm sun. Food is a big part of this community, and it's Lair Taverner's specialty.
One of the things that I like the most about it is the selection of food that's right outside my front door. And being able to make a shopping list and come down to the greenhouse and get what I need is a total bonus of living here.
Lair arrived at Snow Lake Keep 5 years ago from Ontario, where he ran a market garden.
I guess I see the world just getting crazier and crazier. We're living right outside of Toronto, and there's just a lot of people, a lot of noise, a lot of pollution, and it was inspiring when I first came here because I just saw how we could be living so much more in tune with nature than we had been living.
Lair is now Snow Lake Keep's resident chef.
So for lunch today, we're going to be making chicken from the farm and then a selection of roasted veggies. So right now I've been just picking some cilantro, some dill, and we've also got some kale and beets and carrots in here.
Like everyone who now lives in this community, Lair was drawn to the values of Snow Lake Keep.
I was mostly attracted to this lifestyle to be in the woods and live a peaceful, more quiet life, really. That's what really appealed to me. And also the housing just seemed so beautiful to me that compared to other stuff that we were looking at in the neighborhood, this was hands down way more interesting. I guess I was surprised by sort of the modern feel of these homes, that it felt really cool and modern, but living so much simpler. Well, the amount of electricity that we have, it definitely took a little bit of getting used to because I like to vacuum and I couldn't do that every day. But really, I kept a bunch of my appliances that I used to use, and they're still in a box up in the attic, and in 5 years I haven't really thought about it. So there's other ways that we're doing things, like for instance the toaster. The wood stove is on, So we just put our bread on top of the wood stove and toast it that way. And so it's not like you're actually missing things, it's just finding a different way to do those same things.
All of the community members share farm chores, but with 6 farmers, many hands make light work.
All right, Coco.
Ann Thorne moved to Snow Lake Keep 4 years ago after taking a permaculture course. These days, it's Ann's job to milk the goats. The goats produce manure for the gardens. They also clear their own pasture in the forest, and they provide the community with meat and milk, which gets turned into cheese. That's Paul Heppner Hummy's job. He arrived at Snow Lake Keep 5 years ago and has become the community's official cheesemaker and head gardener.
I had always wanted to get more connected with my food supply, my food source. I have always appreciated the quality of fresh food or food that you grow yourself, organically, without chemicals.
Today, Paul is making goat cheddar. It's a 4-hour process. As he mines the stove, Paul is also working online as a web and software developer. He's the firm's tech guy, keeping everyone connected to the outside world through the internet.
Things weren't looking great for the good of the planet, and I figured I need to do something about this. I was otherwise just going to probably become a software developer. I was studying computer science at the time at Waterloo, and I felt like that wasn't going to do it for me. I needed to do something more concrete that would kind of help steer our society in a better direction. And for me, growing food really spoke to me.
When the cheese curds are ready, they're pressed into a block and aged for 6 months in a root cellar. Soon there will be a new place to age the cheese, a purpose-built cheese cave. It will allow the cheese to age with a steady, cool temperature and controlled humidity.
We're still working on the cheese cave. It's got a little ways to go, but the bulk of the work is done, just getting this foundation finished. So really the next step is just to insulate this room, put an insulated door on, and build the shelves, and then bring in the cheddar.
So this is our access.
Dereck Eagles is a master of cistern design. Every house on the property has one, which holds up to 8,000 gallons of rainwater collected from the roof. Even if a house sat vacant all winter, the indoor temperature would never drop below 12 degrees Celsius.
We use a couple of cords of hardwood to heat with in the winter, and that does us. So it's very little work, and most of the wood at this point we're getting comes from the Clearcut.
In deciding which trees to cut for firewood, Dereck carefully considers each one. Using a practice called silviculture, Dereck helps the trees grow into a healthy Acadian forest.
It has died back a fair amount, and we've cut a fair amount out of it so that now it's a little more open. There's less competition for nutrition and sunlight. So a big goal of this is to break up the age range. So we're tending to favor seedlings now. So we have a multi-generational forest happening at this point, as opposed to everything just being the same age.
Helping the forest surrounding the homestead to grow back as quickly as possible is a big part of the reason Dereck chose to farm on a Clearcut.
Certainly nature would do this by itself. It doesn't really need us to regenerate the forest. However, a great deal of this province has been clear-cut, both publicly and privately. And I think it's really important for us at this point to think in terms of carbon sequestration, and therefore how fast we can make that happen. So now we have a lot of hardwood regeneration, which we're trying to manage in a way mimicking nature, but at the same time speeding up that process as much as we feel comfortable with. So as a result, for the first 15 years after a clear cut, it's a space that's actually emitting carbon. So clear cuts are not only taking the opportunity to sequester carbon away, but they're creating a net outputter, a net emitter of carbon. So now this forest is back to the age where it's actually sequestering carbon again.
When we come back, more lessons learned from living on clear-cut land. Living on the site of a former clear-cut is a lot of work. On the homestead at Snow Lake Keep on Nova Scotia's North Mountain, there is a small community of people living off the grid. They come from different backgrounds, but share a commitment to protect their land. They have 7 solar-powered homes, gardens, greenhouses, livestock. Along with the daily chores, there's ongoing work in the forest, selectively cutting trees to mimic nature so that a healthy Acadian forest will grow back from this damaged land. But even with all the work, Dereck Eagles wouldn't live anywhere else.
I can't imagine myself living any other way at this point. It's been a long time, and it's been a process. So the longer this quote-unquote lifestyle has continued for me, the more in-depth it's gotten, the more interesting it's gotten. There's really no end of things, connected things that you can learn. And a lot of these things are lifelong crafts, whether it's timber framing or forest management or gardening. You never stop learning, and you're always presented with something new. Every season is different. Every patch of the forest is different.
Paul Heppner Hummy feels the same way.
I'm getting to a point where I feel like I am doing it to make it a positive example and to inspire others. I feel I've more or less reached my goal of being mostly self-sufficient. These are things that we all used to do for thousands of years in the past, and that knowledge has been lost. And it's time to bring that back. I feel this is a real awesome way to make a difference and live a low-impact life. And it's so rewarding. It's a lot of work, but it's, for me, the balance is definitely in the category of reward, and I'm happy to share my experience with others.
Many people are eager to learn from those living at Snow Lake Keep. In fact, there's so much interest, the community has an internship program, and they offer workshops on timber framing and permaculture.
I feel that a lot of the people that I talk to these days are really searching for a way to do some good, any kind of good. And people that come here are always really excited about this. We really take, I take it for granted at this point, my lifestyle here. And I don't really think of it as a lifestyle so much as this is just my life. But And it is kind of amazing that people are interested in it in some ways, but I also get it. Like, I also get why people might be interested in this, because inadvertently it does maybe offer some solutions to the questions that people have about how we can be more responsible environmentally and socially, how we can get along with each other.
Dereck's vision for this community isn't all new. For generations all around the world, people have set up intentional communities built on ecological values. What's different here at Snow Lake Keep is that this community is on a former clear-cut. In Nova Scotia, choosing land like this for a homestead is catching on.
Since I came 5 years ago, I've seen the population in our immediate neighborhood expand a lot with young people because they're able to afford property here. And some friends of ours just bought a clear-cut property down on the shore, and now they're building a homestead there. And I've seen a lot of people coming from BC and Ontario who can't afford homes out there. And so here they can kind of live more of the lifestyle that they would like to in a place that's friendly and affordable.
People living at Snow Lake Keep have benefited from this low-cost, damaged land. But even so, they are by no means in favor of clear-cutting.
Leaving a clear cut unmanaged and really just walking away from it, I feel, is an irresponsible use of land. It's a really affordable way to get yourself a piece of land that you can build and farm with.
Snow Lake Keep isn't open for new members. The community has a self-imposed cap on its population. It's based on the amount of firewood the forest can sustainably produce to heat their homes and cook their meals. So with interest in their lifestyle on the rise, Dereck Eagles and Adam Harris have purchased a second, larger Clearcut, just a few kilometers from Snow Lake Keep. They're looking for like-minded people who would like to homestead on this land.
So we're hoping that we can kind of just play matchmaker, and by purchasing a fairly large acreage like this, and then you know, dividing that up into something a little more manageable for people to buy and make it more affordable for people, we can be providing essentially affordable housing while you know, pairing the land with people who will steward it.
It's the end of the day at Snow Lake Keep and time to wind down around the fire. It's moments like this when everyone can take stock and reaffirm why they've come together to live as a community. And while it may not be the lifestyle for everyone, Adam believes if you want your life to be more connected with nature, it's a great way to live.
If you feel dissatisfied with you know, a life in the city, or a life where you're not in as direct relationship as you might wish to be with your food and your energy supply and all the resources that go into your life, then I would just recommend just get out there and give it a try. You know, I really don't think you have much to lose. There's so much land, especially in Nova Scotia. The Back to the Land movement, I think, is making a resurgence right now, and it's just an exciting time to be part of that. And I would just encourage anybody who's got a burning desire to experience that lifestyle to just go for it, and I think you'll find that your life is better.